Hey everyone, I'm Magnanimous. Welcome to my channel. This is going to be my first Black Clover discussion, and hopefully there will be many more to come, so make sure to subscribe so that you never miss out. Now, before we begin on this video, I'd just like to say there are spoilers, especially up to around episode 120, 121, so if you're not up to date, this is the time to click off the video, especially since it's such a huge part of the story. I don't want to spoil it for you. So hopefully I've given you enough time to kind of evade spoilers that might come your way. Now let's get into it. So today I'm going to be talking about Patry and his story, and the anime does a really good job of explaining his character and his background. However, they don't do it in order. So to start off, we're going to be talking about the devil. The devil's original plan 500 years ago was to, number 1, get a body, and number 2, get a grimoire. And kinda number 3 is just to create chaos and all that stuff. So, in order to create chaos and really set up his whole plan in general, he decided to turn the humans against the elves, and it really wasn't that hard because they were already fighting. They really didn't like each other. And so he ended up taking the royal family and he told them that the elves were going to be attacking the princess, Tetia, which was not the case. So the humans go and they completely demolish the elves and they kill them all. Now then, Patri, who is like 14, 15 at this time, has not received the grimoire, and he doesn't really agree with Licht, but he has a little bit of hope. What's important here is that the devil was successful in creating a 5-leaf grimoire, which was Licht's grimoire. It turned from a 4-leaf to a 5-leaf, which the devil needed. And then secondly, he wanted Licht to turn into a dark elf so that he could take possession of his body. Now then later on in the series we find out that when an elf turns into a dark elf, they're more of like a hollow shell. I believe that's how it was described of what they were, so that would allow the devil to really possess Licht. Licht finds out that it wasn't Ymir who was responsible for slaughtering all the elves, and it really saves him from becoming that dark elf form, but he's still really sad and he's still full of despair, and he feels that there's still a chance that he might slowly turn into a dark elf. So he ends up sacrificing himself and using the most forbidden form of magic, and he turns himself into this demonic monster, and he asks Lemire to kill him, and he basically sacrifices himself so that the devil won't get a body. Now then, that's the original story. The devil loses, but of course the grimoire still exists, and he gets sealed away by Nero. But before Nero is able to completely seal the devil away, the devil is able to use the magic stones to reincarnate Patry. And this is where we meet William Vangeance and Patry and their connection. So when Patry gets reincarnated into William, he looks like Licht. And this is also the work of the devil. Because Patry thinks that Licht used forbidden magic to bring back Patry so that he could finish out Licht's will and get revenge on all the humans. As if he would become Licht and follow out Licht's will. It's important that we acknowledge, though, that Patry is not Licht, even though all the characters refer to him as Licht. It's just that Patry wants to be called Licht because he is, in his mind, fulfilling the will of Licht, and everyone around him recognizes that who's part of the Eye of the Midnight Sun. And the other characters are just not aware of the difference between Licht and Patry. They don't even know that Patry exists at this point. Now then, when Patry first gets reincarnated into William, he goes and he gets his grimoire. And this is further proof that they are two separate people, because Licht had the 4-leaf grimoire, which is super rare, but it was a sword magic grimoire. And Patry got light magic, which is completely different. It helps differentiate the two. So when you see Licht fighting with swords, that's the real Licht. But if you see Licht fighting with light magic, that's actually Patry. So hopefully that'll help you distinguish the two. So eventually, Patry is able to collect all the magic stones and revive the Eye of the Midnight Sun and the rest of the elves, including the original OG Licht. But Licht doesn't fully come back, and this is explained because he used the forbidden magic to turn into that giant demon, that his soul hasn't really fully returned. And it's only after Patry brings back all of his friends that he realizes that the devil was within one of the elves that he reincarnated, and it all goes downhill from there. So the devil had a second plan, and this second plan is where we see around episodes 100 to 120. So the devil needs a few things still. He needs a body, he needs a grimoire, and he wants to leave to the human world where he can rule and just wreak havoc. So in order to get the grimoire, he has a few options. He knows that the 5-leaf grimoire is still out there somewhere that he turned from Licht. He also knows that Patry, if he makes him despair enough, will be able to create that 5-leaf grimoire for him. And because Patry is an elf, he can also turn into a dark elf, and that would be his body. However, when the devil does reveal himself, he is in the Shadow Palace already with the magic stone, and then he uses that magic stone to summon his own original body, which is insane. This means a few things, right? It means that he automatically gets his body, and number 2, that he doesn't need the elf's body anymore. So he doesn't need Patry's body, but he still needs his grimoire, and he ends up getting that because he's already messed with Patry enough, and Patry realizes that he's done all these horrible things and that he was manipulated and used, and he's still angry because he still blames the humans, but now he also realizes that the devil was involved, and that it wasn't Licht who wanted him to go out and get revenge for the humans, it was this devil, and his 4-leaf grimoire slowly turns into that 5-leaf, and eventually he becomes the Dark Elf. So when Patry gets turned into this Dark Elf, he gets this huge magic boost, and his magic actually turns into a different attribute. It now has this darkness type attribute to his light magic, and he's able to use all these different powerful spells without the use of a grimoire. Remember that the devil has possession of his grimoire while he's using all these incredible spells, and he's really giving Yuno and Asta a really hard time when fighting him. Now eventually Nozel steps in and he's able to defeat Dark Elf Patry, and Asta's able to bring him back eventually. But now Patry is trying to help defeat the devil instead of trying to get revenge on all the humans. So he's now on the side of Asta and Yuno, and he's really trying to help, and OG Licht is on the scene, he's trying to help, and everyone just comes together to try to defeat this devil, which eventually they do. So after all that, Patry realizes that even though he's helped defeat the devil, all of his friends and the rest of the elves are still around the kingdom causing havoc. He lets William take back over his body, and William uses his power, along with Licht's power, along with Asta's power, to help break the seal on the rest of the elves. So Patry was supposed to die, but Rades brought him back. And Patry's stories ends with him being able to meet face to face with William Vangeance, and that's really the end of it right there. And that's Patry's character explained. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. If you have any recommendations for any other topics or discussions I could go into further in Black Clover, leave it in the comments below and I'll definitely look at those. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you have a good day.